Hi, I have been snowed in by Minnesota blizzard in March yet again. I'm going to talk to you about how to direct an indie series now, okay? This is the talk that I gave at Lightbox last year based off of my own experience directing Sunny Side Down. Just wanted to sort of re-give the talk to you because I wanted it to be accessible even if you didn't go. Your mileage may vary. Directing an indie series by definition is completely different on every project. You may see glimpses of my co-host Mort back there, okay? The wonderful Morticious Morty. I'll put a closer picture up here so that you can see how cute he is more closely, okay? Gonna rotate. Bam. Okay. First question on the deck. How did I end up directing Sunny Side Down? Where did this all start? I started working at Make, which is a studio in downtown Minneapolis, 4 years ago now. Actually, I think it's 5. So that was 2021. I'm working 4 hours a day, doing all my online classes in the morning, coming into Make in the afternoons. And that was kind of me just getting my footing as a story artist, as a writer. I started reviewing and writing a lot of scripts. I directed a 6-minute animatic that really taught me cinematic lighting and staging. That short never really went anywhere, though I'm sure I could pull it up on the screen now for you to take a look at it. And long story short, I finished that out, the short. And then I go back to my senior year of college because I wanted to finish my short film, which is out now. It's called Creator. You can see it. I only finished it 5 years later. No biggie. I'm going to make a follow-up video all about my experience directing my independent short outside of work and what it took to finish it on my own time. I find that not a lot of people actually talk about how to make your independent short while you are a full-time employee. So I wanted to address that, but that is a future video. Anyways, so my first week at Make, back, I'm not entirely sure what my role is going to look like, leaving the sort of trainee phase into full-time work phase. My role wasn't super defined, just was hired on as a 2D artist, whatever that means, which at Make can mean a huge range of stuff. You could be doing After Effects, you could be writing, you could be directing, you could be animating, you could be designing, you could be doing concept art for 3D work, for 2D work. It's one of the things that I really like about a small studio environment, but I digress. Anyways, first week on the job is where we enter phase 1 of directing your indie series, which is concepting, writing, questioning everything, going with a hunch. Very first week that I'm at Make, Danny comes up to me. He's like, okay, have you seen that one scene in Spaceballs where they go into a diner and there's all these crazy sci-fi parodies? It's about a 5-minute long scene. He was like, I've always thought somebody should like make a series or a thing out of that. And he had decided that it would be us, and that it would be a 2D animated show. He said, okay, because we're a commercial studio, let's focus on tight 1-minute long storytelling. As you can already guess, that does end up evolving later. But at the point in time, the brief was that they would be 1 minute long to play to our strengths in compact storytelling. And also because of very real budgetary restrictions, which is that we were going to self-fund this as a studio entirely off of our commercial work. And that was it. That was basically the brief. A diner in space, short. There's going to be 6 episodes, and it's going to be put out on social media. So we're focusing on a YouTube launch, digital first approach, okay? As always, Danny was like, I want this to have some kind of interesting twist. I want you to figure out how is this unique, what's the hook of the show beyond the sci-fi parody aspect. So he drops this on me first day on the job. No genuine belief that my idea was gonna get picked, because he just said, we're gonna have a meeting on Wednesday, bring 2 ideas and a slide deck, and we'll just see what happens. And studio veterans like Kevin and Aaron Quist were gonna be pitching, and they've been there for 15 years. I literally was like, there's no frickin' way. I just thought it would be really nice to be included and to get to sit in and see the process. So this is where I end up with the original pitch for Sunnyside Down, okay? I don't know how much of this you can read. Probably not very much. I'm realizing I'm probably going to have to edit in these slides anyway, so I should probably give up on this format. This is literally the original slide that I brought, okay? I called it the Tiny Toot because I thought it would be cute to make it kind of the opposite of the Big Bang. And I was like, what if we have a diner in the middle of a supermassive black hole? I thought it would be a really easy way to play with the short format of you need a way to introduce new characters every episode. And I'm like, okay, it's just going to be the poor schmucks that get pulled in by the black hole this time. I like that it created a sense of stakes immediately of you are stuck there. Like the black hole's pull is so strong that once you're at the diner, you can't leave. And it creates a central conflict for the main characters, which I imagine to be a singular human waitress who had no name at the time, and her mentor character, who would be this ancient slug lady who's been running the place since the beginning of time. And they would contrast each other in that one would be always seeking freedom, which is that the main character wants to escape the diner and this shitty service job. And her mentor character kind of represents community and responsibility, taking care of the regulars who are all stuck there with them. So that is the initial pitch. All right. This is the concept art that I included in the presentation. As you can see, there's a When Harry Met Sally parody board where I thought it would be funny where, okay, I don't know if you've seen the original movie. I'm not going to imitate the sounds right now, but imagine dramatic moaning, gasping sounds. But then at the end, at the climax, she gets a chest burster instead. This is a monstrosity that I made. You can see right away my love of like kind of internet meme culture, and also vibrant neon color is on full display. This is the initial first dish that I imagined for Sunnyside Down. Something about like the little neon kitschy umbrella has always really stuck with me, like that you can serve up the grossest thing imaginable and it's kind of cute if you put an umbrella on it after. I'm glad that has always stuck through the show. Okay, point is I pitched one other idea. I wasn't that jazzed about it. This was the idea that I really wanted to do. Actually, let me go back for a second. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, why a black hole in the first place? I can't believe I almost glossed over this. The reason I thought of putting a diner in the middle of a black hole is because I was 22, turning 23 at the time. And I felt that existential despair ever since I was 11, and people told me climate change was a thing, that the Great Barrier Reef dying was a thing, that I would live my life in the shadow of this giant looming void behind me. And I'm sure every generation has some version of this, but I think it's very acute for my age demographic and with how social media connects all of us, that we are aware of the horrors around us at all times. And yet we have to go to our silly little jobs and get yelled at by our silly little bosses and put up with the inane drudgery of life while this big thing looms behind us. And that's what I thought the black hole behind the diner captured. It's like a universal feeling that we can relate to. And there's a humor and an absurdity in that. Like, how do you cope with this thing behind you at all times? And it's obviously humor because I'm the child of Soviet immigrants. And my dad always said that the Soviets said that if a nuclear bomb was going to go off, what's the first step of action? You go get a white fitted sheet, okay, and you wrap it around yourself, and then you slowly but surely crawl towards the nearest cemetery. So that's kind of the attitude that inspired the show going into it. Okay, continuing on. Okay, so my boss said yes. My coworkers, who were 15 plus years experienced directors, were excited about my idea. I was shook. I expected nothing to come out of this meeting. Now suddenly I was put in charge of directing this idea, making this idea happen, writing it, art directing it. It was kind of overwhelming for a fresh graduate out of college. What did I do? In your case, I'm assuming your indie show idea is not going to come from a boss approving it necessarily, but let's just say that you reach a concept that you are excited about. Where do you go from there? Because I feel like having the ideas is usually the easy part, and it's actually making it exist where all the nitty-gritty stuff happens. So, how do you get from this, the initial pitch, to this, which is our final character designs for the show? All right, phase 2, making a pitch deck. It's where you're clarifying, designing, and still questioning everything that you've made thus far. Why make a deck, okay? Why make a deck if you're not in a traditional studio setup or if you're not working at a small indie studio like I am? Decks just force you to clarify what your idea and game plan is. What do you need to put into it? You need to put comparisons. They call them comps, okay? Some people argue about whether comps are good or bad, and when I say a comp, I mean saying, my movie is gonna be like Star Trek meets Clueless, or blah 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 meets blah blah blah. For Sunny Side Down, it's Spaceballs meets Cheers, the sitcom, meets radical 90s nostalgia, okay? For us, it was helpful because it kind of just identifies the base ingredients of the soup that you're making. I think it's helpful if you have more than one, so you're kind of saying at the intersection of these two things is where we're going to find and make something new. Comparisons mostly exist, honestly, for pitching your idea to executives because a lot of people only understand the financial value and the audience of a media property by comparing it to other successful things that already exist. I mean, how many execs have said the words, "Can you make it like the Lego movie?" So obviously there's pitfalls, but in my experience, it is helpful, okay? What else is the use of a deck? You're creating an easy introduction. You're creating a PDF that you can send along to cool artists that you want to reach out to online to see if they might want to collaborate with you on this project, something you can send to your friends for feedback on your idea, something you can send to distributors, investors, you name it. So we sent this deck to voice actors we were looking to work with, or content creators that we were interested in maybe partnering with if they wanted to talk about Sunny Side Down, writers that we brought on board, artists. That was a huge use of the deck, even without us seeking financial investment. Finally, I kind of talked about this at the beginning. Whoops. Making a deck forces clarity for you as the creator. You're going to have to make all this stuff anyways. You're going to have to make concept art of your main characters, write potential episode synopses, describe the themes of your work. Might as well do it in the pitch deck right up front and decide what your thing is going to be. Let's learn from my past together. So this is the actual pitch deck that was made for Sunny Side Down. I had the help of Aaron Quist, who was freelance art directing with Make at the time. He is a killer designer. He made this logo. I could have never done that. Thank you, Aaron. Okay. You can see we have our comparison right at the top here. Sunny Side Down is a space parody. It's the crossover of Spaceballs and Cheers in the radical 90s. Why Cheers? Cheers is how I wanted to explain the way we would relate to our main character. So this human waitress character, she's our point of view, where she's kind of the grounded stoic one who's observing how absurd and crazy all these colorful neon aliens are around her. Just like in Cheers, Sam, who's the owner of the bar, kind of observes the dynamics of all the different bar regulars who kind of are the core entertainment value of the show, more so than even the main character. I made some mood boards of the visual style that I wanted to do something inspired by Midnight Gospel and super vibrant neon color that's still rooted in dark black shadows. And then we get into like an introduction, do a style frame, show the environment and the world you're going to live in. But again, I'm just covering the main themes, a lot of the same things I already talked about earlier that were the core of the pitch. That we're going to have these two leads, their dynamic is going to anchor the show. Then you start introducing the main cast. We start designing all of them. Doogie Howser, Nexpendable, Mantis, unfortunately didn't really get as much of a hero role in the final show as she deserved, but I still love her. And Fanga. And like this is kind of our initial cast lineup. This is before we had written any episodes, so as you can see, it ends up expanding quite a bit later. We described the goals of the show. We are going to make fun of Star Wars, Star Trek, and all these 90s sci-fi franchises that have now been beaten to death with sequels. So part of the joke is, why can't we get in on the fun and make fun of these properties that take themselves so seriously, it feels like. We're going to connect with viewers who face looming dread and want to laugh at the absurdity of it through the black hole. We're going to make super high quality hand-drawn animation and leverage our commercial animation skills to the max. And we're going to make people root for Nat and want to see if she'll ever successfully escape her meaningless job and the all-consuming force of the black hole. Okay. See, when I read that last part, you might be like, hey, Natalia, I didn't really feel that much in the show. I would definitely say this is my biggest critique of kind of how, looking back 3 years ago, I think I would have advocated to keep more of this element in. At the time, we were super aware of our time constraint, that they were each only going to be 1 minute long. As you can imagine, there's not a whole lot of story you can put into a 1 minute long thing. So the sci-fi parody of it and the gags from the studio perspective seemed to be the main selling point, and I was definitely asked to cut down a lot of the character development and to try to still express as much of it as possible in 1 minute, but keyword possible. Each character at that point only really ended up with one core line of dialogue, so there's not a whole lot of world building you can do in that context. As we got into animatic phase, I was very grateful that we did end up expanding them to 2 minute long storylines, and some of them now even 2.5 minute long storylines once we got into the actual animation and felt like it needed that breathing room at times. But all I mean to say here is the series is not yet done. So please hang tight, and I've gotten to put more and more of this character heart into each episode. Hopefully you feel that too. I guess even I am staying tuned on whether we accomplish this goal, okay? All right, the specs. You gotta outline, what are you making? Are you making 22-minute episodes? Are you making an hour-long feature? Are you making 1 minute long shorts for TikTok? You want to do vertical, horizontal, you want to hit what age demographic, what platform. Basically, you got to decide all this stuff, okay? And we had some of our initial episode write-ups. Looking back, maybe wouldn't have done this much wall of text, but, have to start somewhere. And on the company logo, that's the pitch deck. So, this pitch deck, I would say from when I pitched that initial idea to when it was actually done, that was probably like a month and a half, and it was like pretty much my full-time job. So please be patient on making that pitch deck. Is not going to be a short amount of time. Iterate with loose sketches, mock it up with text early on. Be patient, okay? It's definitely going to be harder if you're on your own as well, because I had a lot of help, as you can see. Okay, this mega board is our initial brainstorming Miro board. I really recommend either Miro or Milanote as a way to organize your thoughts for production. Highly recommend. I would zoom in more. There's like some of the very earliest designs for Nat and Yaba, and I'll show you some of them now. Here's some of the initial inspiration that I gave Joshua Schneider, who was going to design her. I wanted a crossover between Old Russian Lady and Yoda, basically. This initial first sketch with the bald head was me. And Josh saw that, and he also heard me talking about how this sluggishness could be an inspiration. You know, she's old, she's slow, even though she might have multiple arms to be a head chef. So that ended up with this version 1 that I feel like brought the character of who she is first. And looking at that, we were like, oh my god, that's going to be impossible to animate. Like all those tentacles, all those spots. So then after designing Nat, we realized we could pull back a lot on the detail. And that's how we ended up to this version 3, which is much more simplified shapes, more graphic. And we realized we could go even a step further in the final and remove all those green spots and still have her feel alien and iconic and colorful. Basically, try to make your animators' lives as easy as possible, okay? Animating 4 arms was going to be trouble enough, okay? Okay, moving on to Doogie Howser. These are brothers bonded for life. I knew from the beginning that they were going to have Boston accents and that they were going to be little shits, and that was about it. I was definitely inspired by the weird little kitchen guys in Men in Black, and you can see in this reference there's also the rats from Muppets in Manhattan. Josh came back with this first pass of the character design, and I was like, okay, we went a little too flat, too graphic. And it was about actually reintroducing volume and like anatomical structure to the head and to the body, which I was really happy with these contour lines that showed like a more shiny, wet, iridescent salamander texture. I was really inspired by salamanders, and that's why I was like, hey, let's just remove the eyes. If the focal point is their giant big mouths where they're always talking smack, just put all the focal energy there. So that was kind of the key to figuring out their design, I think. And then there's Nat herself. These are some of my earliest drawings of her. I'm honestly still so heartbroken we didn't go with the jeans under the apron look. There's something about this version of her that I still wish I could have seen that show. You can see on my initial reference board, it was always about how can you combine this unusual pairing of a goth baddie, okay, like a, not really even a goth baddie. She's more inspired by 90s grunge. What if she had to wear a 50s diner uniform? How would she make it her own? So it's like, okay, instead of putting her hair back into a nice bun, she has all these spiky bits falling out. And if she's going to wear tights, they're going to have holes in them. And if she's going to wear a skirt, it's going to feel more like a pencil mini skirt rather than like a big poofy 50s thing. And of course, she's going to wear a pair of platform boots. So that was kind of what drove the visual language of Nat. There was a lot of iterations on her style. I was inspired by the proportions of Olive from Popeye, where I wanted her legs to just be crazy long. You can see a pass that's a bit more inspired by the Infinity Train world style. And then Josh did a pass over my design that pushed her in this more angular visual language territory, which totally makes sense. Josh loves angles, okay? You can see it all over House in the Outlands, which is his baby. But in the end, I wanted it to read like a sci-fi parody comedy show. And when I looked at this Nat design, it just didn't sit right because I felt like it looked like action adventure. It looked moody and it looked beautiful, but it just didn't communicate the flavor of the world. So that's something to consider when you're designing, right? Is what does it set up the expectation of the viewer for? And my dream was sort of, can we do something that looks like an adult animated comedy, but better, okay? So it's not going to look like Big Mouth. It's not going to look like Family Guy, though I think those styles serve those shows. I was like, okay, for this, I want it to look almost a bit more anime. I want it to have cinematic lighting and to have these colorful neon gradients. And this is the look that we ended up going with. Aaron Quist made this very, very helpful guide on how to actually draw Nat, which our animators still use. And setting up these world rules is the key to basically learning how to art direct. Art direction isn't necessarily about making something pretty. It's about deciding what is in the world of your show and what isn't, is the hard lesson that I've learned from directing on Sunny Side Down. In the beginning, I wanted to kind of let anything go that I thought just looked nice. And Aaron Quist really drilled into me that it's not, again, about it looking nice, it's about it looking consistent. And that's what makes the world feel believable and cohesive. So getting Nat nailed down and getting these style rules down, then we did a pass over every other existing character to make them consistent to this. So yeah, okay. I believe maybe some of you have already seen videos about this from the Make Originals channel. I'm here to clear my good name, okay? That this is not my self-insert, okay? I wanted her to have a short, nicknamey, one-syllable name. I thought of the name Bee, and I liked that it sounded like a bug, but I didn't like that Bee sounded kind of old-fashioned. Like, you know, it's from Beatrice. And I was telling my co-writer, Kevin Wisdom, about this, and he was like, Nat, it's perfect. It's like the little fly because she's so small and insignificant. And I was like, you're really onto something. And I thought it suited the themes of the show. It was short and snappy. It was memorable. At the time, I genuinely did not really consider that people would think that this is a self-insert because my name is Natalia. But no one has ever called me that. And now people do because of the show. And I have to live with the consequences of my actions 3 years later. In my defense, it was genuinely not my intent. Look at me. This is not my fantasy projection of myself, okay? This is my self-insert. This is the portrait of young Yaba that's hanging in the diner, if you know where to look for it. She literally even speaks with a Russian accent, guys. Like, I'm the child of Soviet immigrants. I think we look identical, okay, if you see the resemblance. So yeah, hope that clarifies for you who my self-insert really is so that you guys can lay off about me naming the main character after myself. It was not intentional, okay? And get off my back, okay? Oh, Yaba, by the way, her name, I think a lot of people have asked about where her name came from. It is genuinely a mix of me being sort of inspired by Baba Yaga. It's a mix of me thinking of how the Russian word zhaba is the word for toad, and I thought that it kind of sounded alien and sci-fi in a satisfying way. And my co-writer Kevin being like, wouldn't it be funny if her full name was Yabba Dabba Doo, but nobody knew that? And now you guys watching this video are the only ones that know that. So you're welcome. Onwards we go. Okay. In phase 2,